Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir à toutes et à tous et merci de vous joindre en si grand nombre aujourd'hui. Nous avons plus de 450 personnes qui se sont inscrites à cette session. C'est un nombre impressionnant et qui démontre l'intérêt pour le sujet que nous allons traiter ce soir. Mon nom est Jacques Bénard et je serai l'animateur de la séance et je vous remercie encore à nouveau de participer en si grand nombre. My name is Jacques Bénard and I will be acting as moderator for tonight's session. We thank you for attending this second information session on the master plan zoning bylaw revision for Côte Saint-Luc. At the first session on June 8th, we talked about, in broad terms, about the concept of a master plan and the revision process that the City of Côte Saint-Luc has undertaken. This session was recorded and you can still view it on the city's website in the Engage section. We're going to see right now a quick video from Mayor Brownstein, who will give an introduction to this session.
Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second information session about the Côte Saint-Luc Master Plan and Zoning Bylaw Revision. The next several years will be pivotal. Like all cities, we are grappling with issues such as climate change, housing shortages, housing affordability, and a changing commercial landscape. Nous avons une occasion unique de réimaginer l'ensemble de ce que Côte Saint-Luc pourrait être. Nous le ferons en intégrant les meilleures idées provenant du monde entier. Nous allons créer une ville vivable, connectée et prospère. Lors de cette séance d'information, vous entendez la vision du conseil municipal présentée par notre directrice municipale associée, Tanya Abramovich. At this information session, you will hear the City Council's vision from our Associate City Manager, Tanya Abramovich. A focus of this information session is on the eventual redevelopment of the 3 large shopping mall sites. That's why we've invited the owners of Décarie Square, Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Centre, and Quartier Cavendish. You'll hear from them about their redevelopment concepts. This information session is one element in the consultation process. We'll be sharing more information and gathering your feedback throughout 2022 and into 2023. Vous allez entendre parler de tout ce process au cours de la séance d'information. Merci de prendre le temps d'être avec nous. Portez-vous bien.
So thank you, Mayor Brownstein. Mayor Brownstein is here also is attending the session with other councillors that are with us tonight in listening mode. Dida Berku, the councillor in charge for this file of the city, will be also making closing remarks. I'm joined by Lorraine Vatiligan, and Elizabeth Robertson from H&K Strategy, the firm that was hired by the city to help with the participation process. H&K works in close collaboration with the urban planning firm called FAE. FAE's role is to provide knowledge and technical assistance in support of the consultation process. The firm is represented tonight by Nadia Richer. Next slide, please. Dans cette seconde rencontre publique, nous allons aborder les visions d'avenir de 3 centres d'achat avec lesquels les résidents et les résidentes de Côte Saint-Luc sont très familiers. Donc d'abord, il y a le quartier Cavendish, situé au cœur de la ville. Il y a le carré Décarie, qui est localisé aux abords de l'autoroute Décarie. Et il y a le centre d'achat Côte Saint-Luc, qui se trouve plus à l'ouest et à la limite de NDG. La séance de ce soir a pour objectif de vous donner un aperçu, d'une part, de la vision de la ville sur les 3 sites des centres commerciaux, des caractéristiques de chacun de ces 3 sites et de la vision des propriétaires de ces sites. As these sites that we're talking about tonight are private properties, the city thought it was appropriate to invite the owners to share briefly their vision and intentions. Obviously, any significant change on these sites will require the collaboration of many parties and should be beneficial to all. Let's go to the agenda on the next slide. So we are going to start this meeting with a series of presentation. First, there will be a presentation on the consultation process. Second, on the city's vision for the shopping center sites. And that will be followed by a summary of the characteristics of each of these sites. This presentation done by Nadia Richer will also include trends in shopping mall redevelopment. And finally, the owners of each of the site will give you an overview of how they wish to approach the redevelopment of their property. Nous aurons ensuite une période de questions durant laquelle les présentatrices et les présentateurs répondront à vos questions, aux questions que vous aurez posées par écrit dans la boîte Q&A. Nous allons vous expliquer dans quelques instants comment procéder. La rencontre prendra fin à 21 h. So the meeting will end at 9 o'clock. Before we go further, I will ask Lauren, who is in charge of the technology for this meeting, to give you a few quick tips on the use of the Zoom platform. Your turn, Lauren.
Thank you very much, Jacques. So as we get into this session, of course, we've all been online for almost 2 years, but I'll give a quick overview of what we're looking at technologically. You will notice you can't come off camera, off mute. That's because we're in the webinar platform, but that by no means we don't want to hear from you. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a Q&A box where we invite you to submit all your questions and comments. We will try at the end of the session to address as many as we can. Please feel free to let me know of any technical issues in that same section, and I will do my best to help you. The last flag I will mention is that this session is being recorded, as Jacques mentioned, so please be aware and have a great session.
Thank you, Lorraine. So as Lorraine just mentioned, we encourage you to post your questions at all times and remind you to keep your question on tonight's subject, obviously, and to remain respectful. Lorraine will moderate the question and post all the questions except those that contains derogatory remarks. To avoid any distractions, the question will be posted for all to see only during the question period. Please make sure that your questions are short and clear, and that will be a big help for me as the moderator. Lors de la période de questions, je vais commencer par les questions écrites dans l'ordre qu'elles ont été. Vous pourrez poser les questions dans la langue de votre choix et nous vous répondrons dans la langue dans laquelle vous aurez posé les questions. During the question period, I will start with questions that have been posted in the Q&A box, and will address them to our presenters. Only our presenters tonight will answer questions during the session. If there are some unanswered questions, the city will post the answers on its website, again, in the Engage section. You will also have an opportunity to ask your question in person directly to our presenters, at the open house on September 18. Like the first public meeting, as we said, this meeting will be recorded and available for all to see on the city's website on the Engage page. Now, let me introduce you to the first three presenters, and I will be asking them to open their camera. So Tanya, Elizabeth, and Nadia, please open your cameras so people can see you. Thank you. So Elizabeth Robertson is an account director at the public participation specialist at H&K Strategies. Elizabeth will show you an overview of the pre-consultation process and how you can give feedback. Tanya Abramovich is associate city manager at the city. Tanya will share with you the city's goals and vision for the shopping mall sites. And Nadia Richer, the urban planner from FAE, will give you a tour of the 3 sites and will also address the trends in shopping mall redevelopment. Commençons donc par la première présentation qui va être faite par Elizabeth Robertson. Elizabeth, ta parole est à toi.
Merci beaucoup, Jacques. So, Lauren, I'll ask you to go straight to the next slide, please. So first of all, let's talk about what this pre-consultation process is about. What's the objective of it? Eh bien, l'année prochaine, la ville de Côte Saint-Luc rédigera un nouveau plan d'urbanisme et révisera son règlement de zonage. So the City of Côte Saint-Luc will be drafting a new master plan and revising its zoning bylaw next year. Now, a master plan is a long-term urban planning document that guides the development of the city. So it determines where citizens live, how they get around, where they shop, and how resilient this city will be in the face of major challenges like climate change, for example. So the revised Côte Saint-Luc master plan will guide the city's decisions about housing, about commerce, transportation, green spaces, infrastructure, and even its financial sustainability for many, many years. Just to give you an idea, the last master plan in Côte Saint-Luc was drafted in 2004. So that was almost 20 years ago. So this master plan could very well last another 20 years. So it's time to get your ideas out there. Alors, l'objectif de la pré-consultation est de guider la ville dans la conception du nouveau plan d'urbanisme. The goal of the pre-consultation process is to guide the city in the design of this new master plan. Now, you're probably wondering, why are we calling it a pre-consultation process and not just a consultation process? Lauren, next slide. So we're calling this a pre-consultation because the master plan revision process is still in the very, very early stages. So here on the screen, you can see the different stages of the revision process. First, at number 1, the city gathers information. Then it drafts a preliminary version of the master plan. The city council will adopt the draft master plan. And then there's an official consultation, an official public consultation where citizens are invited to come and comment on that draft master plan. But we're not there yet. En ce moment, on est encore à l'étape numéro 1, l'étape de rassembler l'information. Right now, the city is gathering information to help guide the design of the master plan. So the official legally required consultation will only happen once the master plan is drafted. So that's why we're calling what's happening now a pre-consultation. Next slide, please. Alors, voici un aperçu des activités qu'on a organisées dans le cadre de la pré-consultation. On a commencé le tout en juin, le 8 juin, avec une séance d'information sur le plan d'urbanisme. And tonight, we're at the second green box with an information session that will focus, as Jacques was saying, more specifically on the redevelopment of the shopping mall sites. And this Sunday, you're all invited to an open house that will be held at the ACC, where you can meet some of the people that you'll hear from tonight. And in a little over a month, on October 26th, there'll be a public hearing where interested citizens and groups can present briefs. And throughout the fall, there'll be some other consultation activities. We still need to finalize the exact dates of those, but they'll be announced at the end of next week. Au bas de la page, vous remarquerez le sondage en ligne, the online survey. So this online survey will go live tonight, right after the meeting, and it'll be open until the end of October. You can find it by visiting the website, cotesaintluc.org/engage, ou en français, à cotesaintluc.org/contribuer. Then after we've done all these activities and after the online survey is closed, we'll compile and analyze all the information that we've gathered throughout the process and report on our findings, and we'll release the report publicly in December. Et ce rapport sera accessible via, encore une fois, le site web, cotesaintluc.org/contribuer. And now I'd like to give you a few more details, because that was an overview of the whole process, but I'll give you a few more details about 3 activities in particular, specifically the online survey, the open house, and the public hearing. So, online survey. This is the most exciting one tonight, I think, because it's going live tonight, right after this meeting. Et ce sondage en ligne, c'est l'occasion vraiment d'identifier vos priorités pour la ville, de donner votre opinion sur plusieurs enjeux, de partager vos idées, de partager vos commentaires, votre vision pour la ville, et en général de faire entendre votre voix dans le processus. The survey takes about 12 to 15 minutes to complete, and you can access it on your phone, your computer, your tablet, any device. And so as soon as we're done, you can head on over to the website. If you go to cotesaintluc.org/engage, if I say it enough, I figure you'll remember it. If you go to that website, just click on the master plan section, and you'll have a link to the survey that will be quite obvious to you right there. The survey will be open until October 31st. Next slide, please. So next Sunday, well, this coming Sunday on the 18th, we'll have an open house at the Aquatic and Community Center. So you can drop by anytime between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Vous pourrez rencontrer, échanger avec les professionnels de la ville, avec des urbanistes, avec les propriétaires des sites, des centres d'achat. In fact, many of the people that you'll be hearing from tonight will also be present at the open house. So if you don't have a chance to get your question answered at the end of the meeting, you can ask it in person on Sunday. And it's also, of course, a chance to talk to your fellow citizens and to find out what they think about the future of Côte Saint-Luc. So that's this Sunday from 10 to 4 at the Aquatic and Community Center. Next slide, please, Lauren. And as I mentioned, you'll be able to give your feedback in the online survey. But if you have more to say in October, on October 26th, we'll be holding a public hearing where interested individuals and groups can prepare a short brief and present it in person. L'audience se tiendra le 26 octobre en soirée à l'hôtel de ville. Et c'est sûr qu'il faudra vous inscrire et soumettre votre mémoire à l'avance. So all the details about how to sign up, the parameters of the briefs and the deadlines, etc., will be posted on the website at the end of next week. Alors, si c'est quelque chose qui vous intéresse, visitez le site web à la fin de la semaine prochaine et tous les détails pour vous inscrire y seront. Next slide, please. So speaking of websites, I've mentioned it a few times already because it's one-stop shopping really for everything related to the master plan revision process and to the pre-consultation process. So this is where you can go to fill out the online survey, find out the time and place of the next activities, and sign up for the public hearing. You can also download a guide to the master plan revision process that we've prepared. Le guide est disponible en français et en anglais. Et à l'intérieur, vous trouverez de l'information sur le plan d'urbanisme et le processus de révision. On y décrit aussi la vision de la ville, ainsi que les informations que vous entendrez ce soir sur la revitalisation des sites des centres d'achat. So basically, this is where you can find out everything you ever wanted to know about the master plan revision. The website is also, as Jacques mentioned, where we post the recordings of these sessions. So if you know anybody who wanted to come tonight but couldn't make it, they can log on to the website tomorrow and the recording will be up there. So that's at côtesaintluc.org/engage. Alors maintenant, je vais céder la parole à Tanya Abramovich, la directrice générale associée de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc. Tanya?
Merci, Elizabeth. Thank you. Bonsoir à vous tous. Welcome to this session. I am delighted to be presenting the city's vision on behalf of the City Council. While the master plan focuses on the whole city, this particular information session concentrates on the 3 big shopping mall sites, which represent a huge opportunity for the City of Côte Saint-Luc and its residents. Pendant des décennies, ces grands centres ont ancré les quartiers qui les entourent, servant de centres commerciaux et sociaux à leur apogée. Today, like interior malls of this kind everywhere, the sites add very little to the landscape. They provide little greenery, no architectural beauty, no street life. They do provide local services like groceries and pharmacies, hairdressers and clinics, however, and we will preserve those. The shopping mall sites are relatively large and have the greatest potential on which to build modern developments that benefit our residents. Each would be designed with the surrounding area in mind. This is not like other cities where a forest or green space has to be cut down to create new development. The malls are inward-facing concrete boxes with huge surrounding parking lots, after all. It can only get better. Redeveloping these sites would allow us to do 3 important things for Côte Saint-Luc. First, introduce a new kind of neighborhood that responds to the needs and realities of our time. D'abord, introduire un nouveau type de quartier qui répond aux besoins et aux réalités de notre époque. Secondly, it will improve the connectivity within Côte Saint-Luc and with other cities. Améliorer la connectivité au sein de Côte Saint-Luc et avec d'autres villes. Finally, it'll increase our tax base, augmenter notre assiette fiscale. Let me tell you more about each one of these elements and why they're important. Next slide, please. I forgot to advance the slide, sorry. First, next slide, please. First, I want to paint a portrait of this new kind of neighborhood we're envisioning, which is not new at all from an urban planning point of view, but which we don't actually have in our city at present. It starts with a variety of housing options. These developments would have different kinds of housing types to meet the needs of people at different stages of their lives. So for example, a studio apartment for a young adult just starting out, or townhouses for families. We envision a range of affordability so that people of all income groups can find a place to live, be it rentals or to own. Like cities all over the world, affordability and availability are a critical issue. In Côte Saint-Luc, 14.1% of our residents live below the poverty line, according to the last census. And we must ensure that a portion of the housing in all these developments are accessible and affordable. These neighborhoods would be zoned for mixed use, meaning that alongside residential buildings, there would be shops and businesses and offices too. We want people of all ages and abilities to be able to walk to the shops, amenities, or workplaces that are close by, or at least be able to access their destinations by rapid transit if they aren't. Walkability is incredibly important and allows people who cannot or do not drive to be independent. This also makes the area more interesting and dynamic, with shops, cafes at street level, and things to look at when you walk by. We want a vibrant public realm, places for people of all ages to hang out, to meet up with other people, to watch the world go by, to see or be seen. Nous envisageons une architecture de qualité et de beauté dans ces quartiers, des bâtiments que les gens peuvent aimer et qui sont à l'échelle humaine. Parce que ces quartiers seraient plus verts, avec plus d'arbres et d'ombre, et construits selon des normes écologiques plus élevées, les gens seraient en mesure de rester plus à l'aise à mesure que les impacts de changement climatique deviendraient plus aigus. Next slide, please. The second thing that the redevelopments of the mall sites would do is to help make it easier to get around. Right now, the train yards and tracks cut off different sectors of Côte Saint-Luc from one another. Why can't there be a pedestrian bridge over tracks to give easier access to other parts of town? Why shouldn't we have a train station when the EXO passenger train literally passes through Côte Saint-Luc? Why should our residents always have to take the long route and use Décarie Boulevard and sit on all the traffic to get to boroughs like Saint Laurent, which are just north of us as the crow flies? Our residents do not have the mobility options and connectivity they deserve. Every single one of the 3 mall developments presents an opportunity to solve this problem. For Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Center, we're trying to get a train station that would go directly downtown in 15 minutes and have a pedestrian link to Parkhaven. For Quartier Cavendish, there would be a mobility hub, not only for rapid transit that would pass through the Cavendish extension to the metro in 5 minutes, but access to car and bike share. For Décarie Square, we envision a bike and pedestrian bridge that would connect the development to the future Hippodrome site, also making it easier to access Namur Metro. Next slide, please. La troisième occasion que représentent les réaménagements de ces centres commerciaux est l'augmentation de l'assiette fiscale de la ville. Pour clarifier, j'entends par là augmenter les recettes fiscales en augmentant le nombre de ménages qui paient des impôts plutôt que d'augmenter le taux d'imposition. Bien qu'il ne s'agisse pas en soi d'une raison de réaménagement, c'est sûr, la possibilité d'augmenter les revenus de taxes ne peut être écartée et il serait irresponsable de ne pas le tenir en compte. We did some preliminary analysis of the potential of the redevelopments of the 3 mall sites, and each one of them has the potential to add at least $3 million or so to the city's net revenues each year. In total, that means around $9 million more every year in the city's coffers once the developments would be completed. It means we can accelerate the rate at which we repair our existing infrastructure. It ensures that we can continue to offer high quality services and reduce our long-term debt. It means financial sustainability. Next slide, please. What does the redevelopment of the shopping centers have to do with the master plan? Along with the master plan comes a zoning bylaw revision, which is the bylaw that technically expresses what is in the master plan. The master plan lays out the big picture, and the zoning bylaw deals with the details. For the development to go forward, we need to make some changes to our current zoning bylaw. Right now, the shopping center sites are zoned for commercial use. We would need to change that in order to make it possible to build residential buildings as well. We'll have to specify how many stories can be built, how many parking spaces should be included, and on and on. Once the master plan, zoning bylaw revision, and accompanying bylaws get formally adopted, the zoning would be in place to make redevelopment possible. At that point, each project would have to go through regular steps that any project has to go through now. Later on in this information session, the site owners are going to show you what they want to do with their sites. Keep in mind that these are preliminary ideas. Nothing has been formally presented to or approved by the city. That's why we're talking about them now, so you can have a chance to hear what the city's vision is and see what the site owners would like to do before we even draft the master plan. You'll have different ways to give us feedback that you can tell us what you think. We, that is the city, Want to know what kinds of housing you think we need, what kind of places are important for us to preserve and create, how the increased connectivity would impact your lives. We also want to hear about the public spaces, what commerce you would like to see. We will take all of that into account as we design the next master plan. Now I would like to pass it to Nadia Richer of FAHI, who will talk about shopping mall trends.
Thank you, Tanya. Good evening. Tonight, I'll be giving you an overview of the general trends happening in the redevelopment of shopping mall sites, followed by a brief presentation of the characteristics of each of the 3 Côte Saint-Luc shopping malls. I'll be giving this presentation in English and in French. Cette présentation sera donnée en anglais et en français. Suivant. It's important to understand the current state of shopping malls in North America. There are some key drivers that are changing their relevance. The first is the evolution of consumer habits. As all of you are well aware, I'm sure, the landscape of retail has been undergoing some major changes, which have been accelerated in recent years with the pandemic. Traditional shopping malls are seeing competition from other types of shopping centers like lifestyle centers and outlet malls that provide an outdoor shopping experience. Online shopping, which has been rapidly gaining popularity, is also hurting retailers. The result is that many department store anchors have disappeared and shopping malls are having to evolve to remain important parts of the community. Another important driver is outdated shopping mall site design. Although they're important meeting points for the community, traditional shopping malls tend to be car-oriented in nature. They're often inwardly facing and surrounded by large parking lots. The ongoing increased demand for housing and different housing types is also putting pressure on redeveloping these sites, which tend to be strategically located in central and established neighborhoods. This makes them some of the last remaining large sites that are suitable for redevelopment, which presents an opportunity to create housing and other services that responds to the needs of the community. Demand for more compact dwellings is increasingly higher as the population ages and single-family houses no longer meet their needs. Next slide, please. So I'm going to discuss a few design principles that illustrate some ways that shopping malls are being redeveloped to bring new life into these sites. I want to first mention that, as with any type of development project, it's important to consider sustainability when making design choices. The main objective should be reducing our impact on the environment while also creating neighborhoods that improve the life of the people who live and spend time there. So in terms of design principles, the first I'll discuss is mixed-use development. So projects should include a mix of housing and commercial uses and services as much as possible to encourage residents to use alternate transportation modes like walking, cycling, and public transit. Integrating community uses such as recreation centers, theaters, and libraries can also help create places where people want to go. You can see an example of mixed-use development below here in Boston called Cambridge Crossing, which is a new urban neighborhood. Here we see a building with a commercial podium and residential above. We can also see open green space where the public can gather and spend time. Having a mix of uses helps create enough activity to animate these spaces. And public spaces should also be designed to be welcoming, safe, and comfortable. Green space is also extremely important in terms of ecological sustainability because it helps reduce air temperature created by the heat island effect and also provides surfaces for natural water infiltration. Les façades des bâtiments doivent être attentivement conçues puisqu'elles interagissent directement avec l'espace public. Il est important de localiser les bâtiments près de la rue dans une optique de confort pour les piétons, tout en multipliant les accès vitrés afin de participer à l'animation de la rue. Suivant. Since shopping malls are typically located in established neighborhoods, it's important to ensure that they're well connected with their surroundings. This can be achieved through connections to existing streets, sidewalks, and bike paths. Within the site itself, smaller blocks can provide more efficient and direct routes, while well-designed streets with features like wide sidewalks, crosswalks, traffic calming measures, and trees for shade improve the pedestrian experience. These design features can be seen in the 2 projects presented here in the Heights District in Washington, in the images at the bottom, and in the Grand Central Mimico project in Toronto on the top right. La présence de stationnement sur un site doit être planifiée en favorisant les stationnements souterrains et sur rue, plutôt que les grandes aires de stationnement en surface. des surfaces occupées par du stationnement peuvent être transformées et accueillir des nouvelles fonctions, telles que des places publiques ou des nouveaux bâtiments. Given the size of these sites and their context within established neighborhoods, careful consideration should be given to phasing. A flexible design framework should be provided to shape future growth and ensure that the site remains functional during each phase of development. Next slide, please. So there are specific challenges associated with redeveloping sites like these. Because they're highly accessible by car, they're often located on major roads with high-speed traffic and congestion. This leads to noise and safety issues which need to be mitigated. Shopping malls were typically designed as standalone sites. Given that they have little connection to surrounding neighborhoods, finding ways to strengthen and create new linkages with adjacent areas can be challenging. Cohabitation between commercial and residential activities creates several issues that need to be addressed, such as disturbances caused by commercial deliveries. Redevelopment projects typically also include large surface stores like grocery stores, and this can make it difficult to ensure density while keeping the buildings at a human scale. These sites will be accessed using a variety of different transportation modes. So the challenge is ensuring an appropriate balance between the space that's given to cars and the space that's given to pedestrians and cyclists. It's important to ensure the continuity of the community role of the shopping mall through the integration of public uses and amenities within the project so as to not lose this important function. Many tenants have long-term leases, and it's often necessary to keep portions of the mall open during redevelopment. Therefore, project phasing and the integration of existing commercial uses can be challenging. Now, despite these challenges, shopping mall sites should be viewed as opportunities. Redeveloping these sites allows for increased housing that serves as a customer base for local services and retail. It allows for a better mix of housing types that are responsive to the current needs of the community. It also makes it possible to sensitively increase density in neighborhoods that are traditionally single-family, lower-density homes. Ces sites sont généralement déjà desservis par des services de transport en commun publics et municipaux, ce qui réduit le besoin d'en implanter des nouveaux. Le redéveloppement de ces sites aide à réduire l'étalement urbain et son impact environnemental. Ces projets de redéveloppement génèrent une masse critique d'usagers pour alimenter les nouveaux services de transport en commun et augmentent l'achalandage à proximité des services de transport en commun existants. Suivant. Nous aborderons maintenant les trois centres commerciaux présents sur le territoire de Côte Saint-Luc. Je vous parlerai des caractéristiques spécifiques de chaque site, de certains points qu'ils ont en commun et de leur potentiel de redéveloppement. Suivant. Although all three sites are in Côte Saint-Luc, they're all within very different contexts. Quartier Cavendish is located at the heart of the community, whereas the other two are in more peripheral locations at the edge of the city. The Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Center is located on Côte Saint-Luc Road, directly adjacent to NDG, so it serves both neighborhoods. And Décarie Square is next to Décarie Highway and near the Metro's Orange Line, and it's more of a destination that attracts people from all different areas. Next, please. So first off, we have Quartier Cavendish. The Cavendish Mall was built in 1973, and in 2010, the southern half was demolished to build a residential project. The mall has served as a community hub, and it's an institution within Côte Saint-Luc. It serves far more than just a retail function. It's a place where people converge, and it's a hangout spot for seniors and students from nearby schools. It's also an important part of a cluster of community and institutional activities, including City Hall and the public library located across the street. As part of a redevelopment project, it will be important to preserve the community-serving function of the site through improved public spaces and enhanced services. Next slide, please. As you can see here, Quartier Cavendish fronts onto Cavendish Boulevard, which is a main thoroughfare, but the entire area is enclaved by railways, which makes it difficult to access. With the ongoing discussions around the extension of Cavendish Boulevard, we can expect that there will be changes to this area. We can expect there to be opportunities to improve the pedestrian experience, but also there's the possibility of improving access to public transit. Next, please. Concernant l'interface du site et ses environs, nous pouvons observer ici que les immeubles les plus hauts de 10 à 12 étages sont concentrés le long du boulevard Cavendish avec des maisons en rangée et unifamiliales de plus faible hauteur le long des limites ouest et sud. Une attention particulière est requise quant à la relation entre les immeubles du site et les immeubles existants de plus faible hauteur, de manière à bien s'intégrer dans le quartier. Suivant. In terms of connectivity, the site currently doesn't have much of a relationship with the surrounding street network. The yellow arrows here show where existing streets could be extended into the site to help strengthen linkages with the surrounding neighborhood. There also isn't currently a safe and comfortable connection between the site and Veterans Park on the other side of Cavendish. There's fast-moving traffic, little trees, or other types of traffic calming measures, and there's a lack of pedestrian crosswalks. The two existing surface parking lots are also quite large and contribute to the heat island effect in the area. Next slide, please. Next, we have the Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Center, which is located in a mainly residential area and it services the local community. The main activity generators on the site are the grocery store, the pharmacy, and the McDonald's restaurant. The site is different than the others as it resembles more of a strip mall format than a traditional mall. However, it has a disproportionately large surface parking lot that separates the building from the street. As you can see on the image below, cars dominate the Côte Saint-Luc Road streetscape in front of the site. Next slide, please. So the Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Center, as you can see on the map, is wedged between CP Railway and Côte Saint-Luc Road. The railway acts as a barrier separating the site and adjacent areas from the rest of Côte Saint-Luc to the north. The site is next to a large green space to the north where the railway branches off and is also close to nearby neighborhood parks and schools in the NDG neighborhood to the southeast. Next, please. Les zones entourant le site ont généralement des immeubles de plus faible hauteur, à l'exception de certains immeubles parmi les plus élevés situés sur Côte Saint-Luc. La volumétrie des bâtiments du site qui font face à des bâtiments plus petits devront être conçus de sorte que la transition avec l'existant soit harmonieuse. Next, please. So as mentioned earlier by Tanya, a new train station is being considered to be implemented just north of the site along the existing EXO Saint-Jérôme commuter line. This is one of the only opportunities to create a transit-oriented development project next to a new transit station in Côte Saint-Luc. In connection with this train station, there's the possibility of creating a link to the neighborhood to the north, which would increase accessibility between the two areas. Next slide, please. Lastly, the Décarie Square site is located in the Namur de la Savane area, which is a high traffic area that's undergoing major transformation with the ongoing development of several new projects. Décarie Square includes retail, office, and medical components, as well as an SAAQ service outlet, which contributes to it being an attractor for the larger population as opposed to a local retail center. Next, please. As shown here, the site is within a 1 kilometer radius distance of the Namur metro station. This means that higher densities are required according to the Montreal agglomeration and metropolitan planning documents, which have the objective of locating 60% of all new households near major transit stations by 2031. Next, please. La voie ferrée au nord du site sert comme une zone tampon entre le site et le Smart Center situé au nord. Des immeubles plus hauts se trouvent à l'est et à l'ouest du site, la hauteur variant de 10 à 15 étages. Et le quartier au sud est principalement composé de plex de 2 à 3 étages. Suivant. The site is well located in terms of proximity to services and transit. However, getting anywhere in this area is extremely difficult. The heavy car traffic on Décarie and Vézina and lack of pedestrian-friendly connections creates a hostile environment for pedestrians and cyclists. Improvements are needed to provide a safe and comfortable connection from the site to the Namur metro station and other commercial and employment areas to the north. Next, please. The Green Corridor is proposed by the City of Montreal and is a 27-kilometer long network of paths that will connect two of the city's biggest parks, Angrignon Park and Bois de Saraguet. It's important to mention that it will pass close to the Quartier Cavendish and Côte Saint-Luc shopping center sites, which will increase biodiversity and give these sites improved access to a larger network of green spaces in different parts of the city. Next slide, please. Despite the unique nature and opportunities of each site, there are some common characteristics that they all share. First, their strategic locations near main roads and with public transit access. All of the sites are configured to favor access by car, which impacts the pedestrian experience. This includes a lack of green space, limited pedestrian connections, and buildings being located behind large parking lots. La présence des voies ferrées restreint l'accessibilité au site et entraîne de la pollution sonore et des enjeux de sécurité. Les grandes surfaces pavées de stationnement contribuent aux effets des îlots de chaleur et constituent une utilisation peu optimale de l'espace. Une conception sensible du stationnement peut être utilisée pour améliorer nos impacts sur l'environnement et l'expérience des piétons. Les zones entourées par une moindre densité doivent être prises en compte. Les méthodes d'intégration sont les transitions entre les hauteurs des bâtiments, la taille et l'emplacement approprié des bâtiments plus hauts et l'utilisation de zones tampons. All of these sites have existing tenants, which will require the redevelopment projects to be phased as to not disrupt ongoing retail activities. Next slide, please. Pour conclure, plusieurs moteurs de changement clés affectent les centres commerciaux à travers l'Amérique du Nord. Principalement, ça inclut l'évolution des habitudes de consommation, l'aménagement désuet des centres commerciaux et de la demande croissante de logements. Ces sites doivent donc être adaptés. Although they face numerous challenges, shopping mall sites should be seen as opportunities by virtue of their large areas and their strategic locations. They're also opportunities to address new and changing demands for housing, while also contributing to sustainability. By following thoughtful design principles, these sites can be successfully adapted to meet the needs of the community while also being sensitive to their unique characteristics. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much, Nadia, Tanya, and Elizabeth. Maintenant, le temps est venu de donner la parole aux propriétaires des trois sites que je vais vous présenter. Alors, je vais demander à Mona et à Alexandre et à Stéphane d'ouvrir leur caméra. Voilà. Bonjour Alexandre et Stéphane. Caméra. Donc, Mona Poon est gestionnaire de projet pour First Capital, qui est le propriétaire du centre d'achat Côte Saint-Luc. Elle sera suivie de Stéphane Tremblay, qui est architecte et associé à la firme Lemay. Stéphane représente ce soir les propriétaires du centre d'achat Cavendish. Enfin, Alexandre Bouadana est associé directeur de D-Line et représentant des propriétaires du carré Décarie. Alors, on va commencer par Mona. Je vais demander aux autres de fermer leur caméra pendant la présentation de Mona.
Merci, Jacques. Alors, suivant, s'il vous plaît. Bonsoir à toutes et à tous sur la place ce soir. Merci de m'avoir invité à vous partager notre vision future du centre commercial Côte Saint-Luc. Good evening to everyone on the call, and thank you for inviting us to speak tonight and share with you our vision of the future Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Center. Allow me to tell you a little bit about our company, First Capital REIT. We are a Canadian public real estate company traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Our headquarters are in Toronto with regional offices across the country, including in Montreal, where I am personally based. We are owner of properties in 147 neighborhoods across Canada. Examples of which include the Waldorton Centre in Côte-des-Neiges, Carré Lucerne in TMR, our Griffintown assets centered around Peel and Wellington, as well as a collection of properties in the Liberty Village neighborhood of Toronto. If you visit our website, right on the homepage, you'll see our company's vision for the future, which is focused on building sustainable, transit-oriented, mixed-use urban neighborhoods. This very much resonates with the objectives and process that we are going through today, planning for the future of the Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Center. Pour nous aider à réaliser notre vision future du centre commercial Côte Saint-Luc, nous avons fait appel à non pas un seul, mais à deux cabinets d'architecture et de design renommés. La première firme présentée ici est Daus Le Stage, les professionnels derrière des espaces publics impressionnants à Montréal, tels que le quartier de spectacle et le quartier international de Montréal. STGM Architecture, notre autre partenaire dans ce projet, possède des expertises incomparables dans la sphère des transports publics et ont travaillé sur des projets comme le REM et le réseau Rapidbus à Gatineau. Les deux cabinets ont aussi travaillé sur des projets mixed-use et multirésidentiels tels que le Pan Am Athletes Village à Toronto dans le cadre de Daus Le Stage et le projet Charlemagne au-dessus de la station de métro Longueuil, Université de Sherbrooke pour STGM. D'autres consultants ont été et seront engagés au fur et à mesure afin de compléter les études de circulation et de marché, entre autres. Next slide, please. First Capital has been owner of the Côte Saint-Luc shopping center since 2002, and its location in Côte Saint-Luc is highlighted as the red triangle in the map on the top right-hand corner of your screen. What is interesting about its location and why we call this la charnière or hinge, and maybe more clearly junction in English, is because it's a natural meeting spot for several types of transportation modes, both current and future. It is the interface between the city of Côte Saint-Luc and on the other side of Côte Saint-Luc Road, the Notre-Dame-des-Grâces borough, so it benefits from service by the STM. It is also bordered by a railroad, which we see as an amazing opportunity for our site. The Exo Saint-Jérôme train line already runs along this track, and should the Exo Train Authority decide to add a future station at this location, it would provide a direct link to downtown Montreal in 15 minutes. Il existe d'autres opportunités de fournir des options de mobilité sur le site, incluant les liens actifs démontrés sur le plan par les lignes rouges pointillées. Les liens actifs menant à l'avenue Park Haven, ainsi qu'au corridor Quartier Cavendish, connecterait les terrains du centre commercial avec le reste de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc. Actuellement, sur le site, il existe 2 intersections signalisées à l'avenue Coronation et à l'avenue Saint-Ignatius. Mais dans le futur, il y aurait l'opportunité de mettre en valeur l'entrée du site à l'avenue Belmore en créant un lien actif qui la prolongerait vers une gare de train potentielle et une connexion à l'avenue Park Haven. Next slide, please. This brings us to our third and final slide showing the vision of this active link where the use of cars would be limited. Today, the site is composed of over 60% asphalt parking. So this is an opportunity for us to reimagine a greener Côte Saint-Luc shopping center. Our ideal vision for the future includes a long linear park that runs through the middle of the property, leading to the potential train station and linking to Park Haven Avenue. We are open to ideas on the exact programming, but this could include play spaces for children, performance spaces, plazas, and green areas. The everyday retail and service base will remain a core component of the future redevelopment, with brand new, modern, and welcoming spaces to suit retailers' changing needs. We would naturally include spaces for patios to line the open park, providing different ways for people to gather. Residential components would be integrated above to provide housing options for those that want to live close to amenities and in an urban setting. And our goal would be to provide a variety of housing types. Keep in mind that this is our vision and planning and that none of the architectural design has been decided yet. We do know that sustainability initiatives will be integrated into the project. For example, since 2006, our company has committed to building all new buildings across the country to LEED standard. And locally, we have also long-standing established partnerships with Communauto and Hydro-Québec to bring car sharing and electric vehicle sharing to our portfolio of properties. In our opinion, an exceptional opportunity for a vibrant, urban, and diverse mixed-use community awaits the future of Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Center. We are looking forward to hearing what you would like to see integrated into the future vision, both at the Q&A tonight and at the open house on October 18th. Thank you. Nous avons hâte d'entendre vos commentaires sur ce que vous aimeriez voir dans la vision future du centre commercial Côte Saint-Luc. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mona. I will ask now Stéphane Tremblay to present on behalf of the owners of the Quartier Cavendish. Stéphane?
Voilà. Bonsoir à toutes et à tous. Encore une fois, merci beaucoup de vous joindre à nous pour cette séance d'information. In fact, we hope that this particular meeting is the launch of a very constructive dialogue on how to bring new life to Côte Saint-Luc and particularly to the Quartier Cavendish, which is at the heart of our community. Je m'appelle Stéphane Tremblay, associé principal chez Lemay Architectes, et je serai le porte-parole des propriétaires aujourd'hui du Quartier Cavendish, notamment les familles Dubrowski et Wolf, qui se sont impliquées activement dans la communauté depuis des générations. Lemay Architects is also partnering with another design firm, New York-based KPF. As lead design partner, KPF has produced some of the images, vision images that you will see today. Next, please. The overarching vision for the Quartier Cavendish is the creation of a vibrant community at the heart of the city, a mixed-use neighborhood offering a broad range of uses, commercial, residential, amenities to the community. Autrement dit, un quartier complet et dynamique au cœur de Côte Saint-Luc. Prochaine, s'il vous plaît. The site is strategically located, as you know, at the center of Côte Saint-Luc. It is surrounded by residential neighborhoods, parks, library, city hall, and religious institutions. Un contexte urbain exceptionnellement riche et diversifié, autant dans sa forme que dans ses fonctions. Please note that all existing essential services, such as supermarkets, pharmacy, banks, CLSC, will remain in operation throughout the redevelopment process. Next, please. What we have in mind is a four-season, mixed-use, pedestrian-friendly neighborhood, structured around an array of public spaces, ranging from quiet residential parks to landscape playgrounds, to active public squares, all connected by tree-lined streets. En d'autres termes, un environnement propice à la vie sociale et communautaire. Prochaine, s'il vous plaît. The city-centric development will be welcoming to residents of all ages, offering a mix of uses and a new shopping experience around the edges of the public places. Somme toute, un parcours urbain convivial, décontracté, offrant un éventail de commerces de détail, restaurants, cafés-terrasses, etc. Prochaine, s'il vous plaît. Our hope is that our neighbors will walk from their home to the library or the city hall and then stroll over to our food and beverage establishments for coffee and bagel. They may choose to simply enjoy our local parks and piazzas. Un quartier central animé, dynamique et convivial. Prochaine, s'il vous plaît. We envision a broad range of housing opportunities addressing the needs of families, the young, the elderly, from all economic circumstances. Maisons de ville, appartements, condos, résidences pour aînés pourront faire partie de cette offre résidentielle. Prochaine, s'il vous plaît. We would develop a network of parks and green spaces connected to other green spaces around the site, playgrounds, linear parks, pocket parks, urban squares, un réseau riche et diversifié prenant des formes extrêmement diverses. Prochaine, s'il vous plaît. We intend to create, in this renewed neighborhood, young and old will be able to walk or ride in safety and comfort. We aim to strike a balance between all types of mobility options and create a pedestrian-focused environment. Les meilleures pratiques en termes de rues partagées seront intégrées au plan d'ensemble. Prochaine, s'il vous plaît. We intend to create an accessible, sustainable, mixed-use site that will be home to a mobility hub that will be integrated with current and future transit development projects. Le concept de mobilité durable sera appliqué à l'ensemble du site. Prochain. We owe to the future of Côte Saint-Luc residents to do our part in the battle against climate change. Renewable energy, water management, green roofs, health, safety issues will guide our approach. Nous souhaitons ardemment léguer à Côte Saint-Luc un projet exemplaire en termes de développement durable. Prochaine, s'il vous plaît. Le réaménagement de côte du quartier Cavendish, qu'on a maintenant rebaptisé, au moins pour le moment, it's a working title, le quartier Cavendish, donnera un nouveau souffle au cœur de Côte Saint-Luc. With your input, we are confident that together we can create a unique community that makes Côte Saint-Luc the ideal place to live, work, and play. Merci d'être présent ce soir et de participer à ce grand projet d'avenir. Et je serai présent à la porte ouverte de dimanche prochain. Merci.
Thank you very much, Stéphane, for this presentation. Let's move on now to Décarie Square Décarie. The owners have decided to present you a little video. And I'm asking maybe Alexandre, do you want to say a few words before, or should I go straight to the video?
Non, oui, absolument. Donc, mon nom est Alexandre Boisdana. Je suis représentant du Square Décarie pour le redéveloppement du Square Décarie. On aimerait remercier bien sûr la ville du processus d'aujourd'hui, de cette présentation pour nous permettre de partager notre vision. Bien sûr, on est très heureux de pouvoir partager notre vision avec les résidents. Oui, nous avons préparé cette courte vidéo qui, je pense, va vous donner une assez bonne idée du projet que nous avons en tête. Et bien évidemment, we welcome your questions to all. We thank you for being here and hope that we will be able to answer any questions that you have. Thank you. Allons-y, Jacques, si vous voulez débuter.
We believe that great design leads to great communities, serving as the foundation for a better and healthier life for our tenants. We build projects that we intend to own for generations to come.
Notre vision à long terme nous amène à concevoir des projets qui s'intégreront et vieilliront bien dans leur environnement et leur quartier.
We have hired KPF, one of the world's leading architectural firms.
I'm Josh Chaikin, a design principal at Cohn Pedersen Fox Architects here in our New York office. And we are a global design practice. We do a range of building types from small scale to large scale. Some of our more notable projects are super complex mixed-use projects like Hudson Yards in New York City. For the design of neighborhoods, the classic mid-century model of low-density residential centered around retail malls has morphed into a more holistic kind of neighborhood design, one that allows people to walk, to occupy, to stay in their neighborhoods. What we're aiming to do with this project is create a neighborhood that does feel very connected to the residential area to the south and to the west. We're looking to provide a market building as the center of this neighborhood. Market building that's surrounded by public space that can be programmed year-round, changing with the seasons during the summer months. It could be used for great outdoor activity through the fall and also maybe later spring. What we'd like to achieve for this project is something, a master plan, a neighborhood that feels authentically part of the city.
We want to create a village that we will be proud to own 50 years from now, a development that people will still enjoy seeing, living, and working in, one that is easily accessible and is traffic friendly, a new greener project that will reduce environmental impacts greatly.
Nous concevons un nouveau village en plein cœur de la ville, axé sur le bien-être de ses habitants et du quartier.
We have imagined an integrated community where our residents and neighbors can shop, socialize, eat, exercise, run errands, and live affordably. This will include an integrated community where you can work, play, and live, a spa and activity center designed to promote healthy living, one of Montreal's largest medical clinics, a fresh food market with plans for a hydroponic veggie and fish farm that uses only 4% of the typical water requirements. We are gifting a community center to the Côte Saint-Luc residents. We are also adding green roofs, green parks, green everything.
Nous tenons à souligner que notre vision est de transformer ce site exceptionnel en un environnement structuré, intégré et diversifié via un développement durable axé sur la proximité, le transport actif et le transport en commun. En offrant des logements de différents types et budgets, des espaces de bureaux, des dépanneurs, des boutiques et des cafés, un marché public, un centre communautaire, une clinique médicale et de vastes espaces verts, notre objectif est de créer un véritable milieu de vie intégré.
That means making these neighborhoods more experiential, bringing people into the neighborhoods, providing the kind of infrastructure and planning that allow people to enjoy the spaces in a multitude of ways. When we're designing mixed-use neighborhoods, we're focused on those things that create a lifestyle experience. It is a model that thinks about how people use their time, something that we feel also respects people's use of time. It almost provides a kind of urban therapy. It provides a way for one to enjoy one's city in a way that suggests a comfort and an appreciation for the amenities that an urban space can afford.
We know that traffic is a key concern. Although it may not seem intuitive, the redevelopment of Décarie Square should improve road traffic around the site, primarily along Vizina Street, by significantly reducing the number of vehicles entering and leaving the site.
Il est essentiel de comprendre que le trafic routier par pied carré généré par un usage résidentiel est bien inférieur à celui d'un centre commercial.
Some commercial activities generate 9 times more traffic per hour than an equivalent volume in residential development. In order for us to generate less traffic, we need to significantly reduce the commercial component and trade it against residential space that is a lot less demanding in terms of car traffic. The new density mix calls for a net reduction of traffic that reaches 30 to 45% depending on the time of week.
Mais nous ne nous sommes pas arrêtés là. Nous prévoyons un nouveau centre de transport qui réduira davantage le trafic et donnera accès à de nombreux nouveaux modes de transport plus sûrs, meilleurs et plus verts.
Indeed, we are working with authorities to gift the following to our tenants and neighbors: a new safer pedestrian footbridge that links to Namur Metro, a new train station that will take passengers to downtown, a new public bus terminal, car sharing, and charging stations, new bike stations and bike paths that link to the rest of the city. Let's step back for a minute and remind ourselves that Décarie Square was built for another era 50 years ago. We are reimagining a new development where architectural design, energy efficiency, energy conservation, and the use of renewable energy are all key ingredients.
Notre objectif est d'aller au-delà des exigences réglementaires existantes en développant un centre qui aura 50 ans d'avance sur son temps.
We are transforming Décarie Square from something that is 50 years behind the times to something that is 50 years ahead of its time. It will be the most forward-thinking and sustainable development that Montreal has ever seen. We believe.
So thank you very much for this presentation, for this video, Alexandre. And now we're moving to the question period. Nous sommes maintenant rendus à la période où nos présentateurs vont répondre aux questions écrites. Je vais donc demander d'une part à Lauren de mettre les questions visibles pour tous et pour toutes. Et puis donc à tous nos présentateurs d'ouvrir leur caméra parce que les questions vont être redirigées vers eux. Alors, comme je l'ai mentionné au tout début, seules les personnes, only the people that are presented tonight will be answering questions. So, just a few other points. Je vais prendre, donc, I will take the questions in the order that they were posted. So there's no, it's not by order of importance or by relevance, it's by the order where these questions were posted. Et je vais les attribuer, je vais donc attribuer les questions aux différents présentateurs. Je rappelle à nos présentateurs ici que vous pouvez me faire un signe si vous voulez effectivement répondre à une question, sinon je vais prendre la liberté moi-même, donc de distribuer les questions. Je vous rappelle également de faire des réponses courtes parce qu'on veut pouvoir traiter un maximum de questions. I remind you that only the questions that are related to tonight's agenda will be answered. And if a question has already been answered, I will simply go to the next one. You can still continue to post new questions. So we'll take that we'll take one question after the other. And until we reach 9 o'clock, also to remind you that this is not the end, this is the start of a conversation. You have, as Elizabeth mentioned, many opportunities in the future to starting with this Sunday, where you'll have all of these great people available for about a period of 5 hours. So then you'll be able to chat with them and ask all the questions you want. If needed, I may take the liberty also to reframe some of the questions for clarity and make sure that our presenters answer clearly. Again, response to unanswered question will be posted on the city's Engage website, and Elizabeth gave many times the address, so I won't repeat it again. So let's start with questions that we already have. So are they posted, Lauren? Are they all on? Everybody can see them?
Yes, and folks are upvoting and keep them coming. A lot of great questions coming in.
Excellent. So we already have 24 questions. So I'll make sure that we try to be efficient in a way of answering. So first question is by Rhonda. Is construction transition period length and impact taken into account in the planning process? So when we are planning all of these great developments, and I'll ask first Nadia from the city perspective, do we take into account in the plan the phasing, the construction, and the impacts on neighborhoods?
You mean Tanya from the city?
Tanya from the city. I will
Yes.
make that mistake quite often
Just making
tonight.
sure. Okay.
Nadia from
So
the city.
first of all, when they pass through the whole PAC process, planning advisory committee and everything, in order to be able to even start, so first of all, if they need demolition permits, they'll have demolition permits, which outline exactly what the street occupancy is and all those technical logistics that engineering is the one that approves. But then they also have to, in the getting of the building permit, that's where a whole lot of things are discussed. Now, phasing for all of these sites, so there's two aspects to this. One of them is the phasing for each mall based on their tenants, based on all those things. So they will only approach us with pieces at a time. But the other thing is, from a city point of view, we are aware that our residents want to live their lives not in chaotic disruption forever. So when we have, I want to say, a better idea of projects, we're going to have to really sit down and do some coordination, because we don't want to have noise, messes. We understand that workers need to park their cars. There's a whole series of construction factors that we're going to have to orchestrate. The engineering department will for sure be the lead, but it's going to be an orchestra, let's just say, of course.
Thank you. So the answer is yes, it will be taken in consideration in the planning process. Thank you very much. The second question is by Michelle, and I'm not too sure if I understand it well, but I will make a I'll try to figure it out. Michelle asked, what is the source to find all this development seeking investors' dollars? So basically, where's the money coming from? And I guess that's what the question could be. Let me maybe talk to the owners, because I guess most of the financial needs will be paid by the owners. So Alexandre, where's the money coming from for these developments?
From in our case, it's private money. We are private investors. Obviously, we will seek financing as any development that we do today.
Thank you. Mona and Stéphane, is it the same kind of answer?
Yeah, so I would say something similar, but except we are a public company. The only thing is that also each phase of the project will have to make sense in itself for the company as well.
Okay, Stéphane, anything to add?
Because I'm being muted, so I have to unmute myself, right? That's I understand. Okay. Yeah, well, first of all, the owners have already an asset, right? This is the land and all of this. This is already worth, they've got the land and the property, and then they add the equity and loans for construction loans, essentially. So as long as they're a market, I think everybody's in business.
Yeah, thank you, Stéphane. Michelle has another question related to what can be done right now to ease the traffic and not wait for all of these developments to be completed. Maybe I'll ask first Tanya, is there anything that can be done in this transition between now and the future development to make sure that traffic is being eased and the traffic issues that we're living right now in these areas be reduced? Tanya.
Well, if we're talking about, the city has been, it's not a simple answer in the sense that in terms of traffic, we have a traffic committee, we look at these things. We have been working, lobbying places like you know, the Borough of Montreal about areas like Vézina for several years now, right? With tiny improvements here and there. But ultimately, without better transit and better options, which we have also been fighting for oh my goodness, years now, there is not an easy way to reduce traffic, right? Like people, Côte Saint-Lucers love their cars. 73% of the trips in Côte Saint-Luc is by car. So number one step, don't take your car. But I mean, that's not an answer any Côte Saint-Lucer wants to hear, but right now, we can only fight for better modes and, I don't know the word in English, désenclavement. It's not going to be fast.
Anything that the developers can do, that's the question that Michelle is addressing to the developers. Anything that the developers can do in your mind, Tanya, to on their end?
Honestly, as a non-engineer, I don't see what they could do this instant.
That's a good answer. From your perspective, any of the developers have an idea on that? Or just Alexandre?
Yes, so I mean, again, today there's little that we can do today. However, what we have seen, right, is that through the traffic studies that we have done, and as we have explained, by changing the vocation of the center from a fully commercial center into a more residential redevelopment, a mixed-use redevelopment, obviously the number of cars coming in and out will be reduced. So this is, you know, on the long term, this is what will happen. In the short-term process or during the redevelopment, obviously we will be doing our redevelopment in many phases. So as we do the development, again, in the short term, because we will reduce tremendously the commercial offering while we're doing the first phase, so there will be a real reduction because obviously, I mean, the site will be in redevelopment.
Thank you, Alexandre. Christine has two questions. The first one is for Mona. Is there any plan or in your vision to have underground parking for those who will be coming to your center, but also taking public transit, the new railway access to downtown?
Yeah, so definitely there's gonna have to be underground parking, of course, and that will also help to alleviate a little bit of that traffic situation as well, because people will be able to park underground.
The other question that Kirsten has relates to the air conditioning, to the you know, the comfort of people who are going to some of the malls, you know, to get air conditioning and spend some time at the mall just to have a, you know, to have a greater comfort, I guess, in summer, very hot days and months. So how do you see that in your malls? Will there be some interior spaces where people can gather or spend some time, or everything is outside? How will you ensure the comfort of your customers and people who are going to your sites? Who wants to start with that? It's to all of you,
I can
developers.
Start.
Go ahead, Mona.
I can start. So yeah, we have accounted for some interior spaces, but it's also important to note that there will be a very much improved exterior space with more green spaces. So just the shade will also help make the space much more comfortable in more green areas as well.
Thank you. Alexandre, Stéphane?
Well, I can
climate?
add a couple of things. We are planning for what we call a winter garden. But which is, you know, something where you can go to in the winter and the four season. In the summer, then it becomes also a fresh air conditioning and conditioned area. But I agree with Mona. Of course, the open spaces will provide shades now. We'll have trees, and you know that heat island will be turned into something that's a lot more comfortable.
Alexandre, anything to add on this?
Non, je n'ai rien de particulier à rajouter. Un petit peu, il faut comprendre que je veux dire, aujourd'hui, c'est une vision que nous présentons, c'est un plan très préliminaire, mais il est évident, je veux dire, que tout ce qui est espace intérieur, oui, sera climatisé, mais en effet, il y aura aussi énormément d'espace extérieur où les gens pourront se promener, mais à ce stade-ci, c'est comme ça reste quand même assez préliminaire.
Thank you. The next question is from Frank. Frank is, we're talking about a lot of proximity, people being able to walk to shopping malls and things like that. His question is very concrete. What is the plan for when I get groceries from the IGA and the Cavendish Mall, I guess by foot, you know, how do you see the the service to your customers in the future, with especially for these type of services like groceries and others. Mona.
So that's actually a great question for us. We actually already have a communal spot at our mall. So obviously we're going to be increasing our partnership with them for the future. There could be other modes as well we can look at. Maybe there'd be more of a delivery service. There's lots of different options, I think, that we can look at.
Thank you. Next question is from Christy. And that's specific to Quartier Cavendish. Will the theater remain open during the redevelopment as it just opened? And she's also said she's excited about the vision and increased green spaces. So Quartier Cavendish, will you keep the movie theater open during the redevelopment?
Well, again, we're also at the early stage of the vision. I mentioned essential services will never close, because a bank cannot close. At best, they'll be relocated overnight, and that's what we're probably planning. In terms of the movie theater, this will be built in sequence, and we'll see whether the banner, I believe it's a Cineplex or a smaller version. We'll see if they want to renew their lease. So there are all kinds of business questions going forward. But I use that theater, so I'd like it to remain, quite frankly.
Thank you, Stéphane. The next question is from Rena. Rena is concerned about parking. She says that all of these places like the plateau she avoids because there's no parking, and she feels that when looking at the plans that you have been presenting, it doesn't look like there's a lot of parking. So will you have indoor parking? Will you have sufficient amount of parking for people to go and not to look for parking? So also she's mentioning that that not everybody can walk easily. So and nor within the winter months. So Alexandre, about parking and easy access to parking.
Thank you. So, again, we did not present, what we're presenting is our vision, but within our vision, and we probably did not mention that in our video, we do plan to have fully underground parking throughout the site. So, definitely, this will not be a concern for people that want to access the site via car. And also, as part of the vision, right, we are trying to promote different transportation options. So I believe that this will not be a concern.
Thank you, Alexandre. Anybody else from the owners want to answer that question?
So I agree with Alexandre, just saying that the underground will be much more convenient, and it's also you don't have to brush the snow off your car when you get back to it. It's very much a plus. There would likely be there'll have to be some outdoor spaces as well, just because there's some certain quick shop things that we could use to mitigate, make sure that there's always some space available.
Thank you. Next question is from Rebecca, and it's her first question. I think she has several ones. So, and I'll ask that question first to Tanya and look with the owners after. What are your housing strategies to include social and affordable housing, targeting people who are unable to access the current market? Tanya, what is the city's perspective on this?
So we don't have a policy like Montreal, the 20-20-20 rule, or there's no, because we're an independent city, we don't have those specific rules. But the city is very concerned about finding housing right now. For example, we had meetings with Kila, who have social housing in Côte Saint-Luc already. They have a 500-person waiting list already. So we've started preliminary discussions, nothing set in stone, but we've started discussions with people of social housing. It is certainly in the vision of the city to have at least one social housing building per development. I want to say our residents need that. And it's not new to Côte Saint-Luc. We already have probably more than any demerged city on the island already.
Thank you. Any plans, Alexandre, Mona, or Stéphane, to integrate affordable housing and social housing in your future developments? Is this something that you're considering?
So I'll answer the question. Again, we don't have definitive plans as to what the mix will be of the different products. However, we do know from a development point of view, we do need to have a variety of offerings within the site. So we are not definitely not opposed to having a social development in the site. I mean, it is something that, again, like I say, it's not a requirement today, but I mean, we've always cooperated with the city. And again, we are open in our vision. It's part of our vision to offer a variety of different types of houses. So that would be part of it, absolutely.
Mona, Stéphane?
Yeah, it's I think I can it's exactly our point of view at this stage. I mean, we're already considering offering a pretty broad range of housing types, you know, from townhouses to apartments to rentals to seniors, and I think through discussion with the city, you know, there's no bylaw in place. I mean, I'm used to deal with this in other boroughs of the city of Montreal, but for sure, affordability is a key issue, and we're 100% aware of that, and we'll work towards it.
Thank you. Mona, anything to add on this?
Yeah, so I would agree with the points already raised by Alexandre and Stéphane. And I also think that it's important for Côte Saint-Luc to discover what their strategy is, because something that works at the City of Montreal may not be the same strategy that works at Côte Saint-Luc. So once that has been defined a little bit more by the city, then we're happy to work with them on that. Thank you.
Frank, who has already asked a question, is asking several others, but he's mentioning here, and it's a long question or comment, that he's 85 years old. And his main concern here, he thought that in your presentation, you didn't make too much of a case for seniors in your presentation. So I would like to hear a little bit more about the consideration that you're giving to this portion of the community, especially in terms of the accessibility of stores to, and Frank says here, to show us the interior experience, which will be so important in our long, cold, and even icier winters. So basically, what are your consideration for seniors at the stage where, you know, you're in your planning? Have you, given any thoughts on this, Alexandre?
Yes, so again, by the fact that we will have an underground parking, I believe that this will help mostly during the winter, because everything will be connected underground, number one. Number two, our principle of development, we mentioned that in our presentation, the 15-minute neighborhood, this is what we have. I mean, this is a trend, this is a global trend today. This is what we're trying to integrate into our vision, meaning that people on site will be able to go to any of their, I mean, if I can elaborate on the 15-minute neighborhood, right? The principle of the 15-minute neighborhood means that most of the needs of the residents on site will be able to be satisfied within the 15-minute walk or bike. I mean, obviously biking is not necessarily an option for older people, but the idea is to have everything at close proximity within the site. So I believe that this will definitely help seniors that will live on site, and the fact that we have the underground access will also be a plus for senior. And most of the site in the summer will be a walkable site, basically. So that should also help the seniors.
Tanya?
So I wanted to address this point because this is one that is truly close to our heart in Côte Saint-Luc. I mean, according to the last census, we have 29% of our residents who are 65 and older. So not only, I mean, what we've been thinking of, particularly with our Smart Cities project that has an ongoing incarnation, is to enable people to live at home, I want to say, as long as possible. So right now, if you're a senior in Côte Saint-Luc and you don't live in your house anymore, or you live in a condo, you're sort of you kind of still need your car, and if you lose your car or you lose your license, it's like the end of your independence, right? And so for us, not only do we want to make sure that we have places for public life for seniors, like a place that is not lost from the Cavendish Mall, we want to make sure that there's opportunity to live close to all these things, so you don't need to get in a car, and it doesn't matter if you lose your license. And then even in the street design, right? So having proper curb cuts, having awnings so you can walk outside and not feel always afraid to fall on ice, to have benches at a certain interval to make sure that if you do walk outside that you can rest, that you're more comfortable. We also, when we're talking about buildings, and I know I'm speaking to the true heart of Councillor Berku here, we want to have buildings that are also smart, right? Like we're working on a living lab project now that to try to see how we can integrate in buildings to like, let's say, not monitoring systems in a invasion of privacy way, but to enable people to live at home and have things like fall detection and things like that. So we're working on, I'm going to say, smart and resilient cities, but our seniors have always been at the heart of our thoughts. And so anything would improve their lives now, not make it more difficult.
Thank you, Tanya. Keep your microphone open. The next question is from Rebecca, and then Rebecca demande si vous avez déjà pris l'initiative de communiquer avec les différents gouvernements pour obtenir des fonds pour du logement social. Est-ce que la ville a fait des démarches auprès de gouvernements pour du financement pour du logement social?
Je ne dirais pas encore. Nous sommes en train de nous informer des possibilités. Moi et, disons, la conseillère Berku, on était à un sommet d'habitation récemment qui se tenait à Laval. On est en mode apprentissage. Donc, lorsqu'on va être prêt et on va trouver nos partenaires au niveau des logements abordables, c'est à ce moment-là que je pense qu'on va embarquer avec les autres niveaux de gouvernement. C'est vraiment, on est à une pré-étape d'apprentissage en ce moment.
Merci, Tanya. The other question is for Décarie Square again, Frank. Frank is concerned about the gridlock, the traffic around. How can you actually do more development when there's like a traffic situation that is already of concern?
So as we mentioned, one of the first things that we did, obviously we are aware, the City of Montreal is aware, the City of Côte Saint-Luc is aware. So, I mean, this is not something new. Everyone is aware of that. I believe these are good news because people are putting things in place to alleviate. But us as developers, what can we do? Obviously, we have a limited power. We cannot change the streets. We cannot change what's around. However, as we presented and as we learned through our traffic study, by the way, the traffic study that we made was done by CIMA Plus, one of the most reputable firms in Montreal in terms of traffic analysis, showed exactly what we said before, that by transforming the vocation of the site from a single commercial site to a mixed-use development, just by that, it will alleviate. Again, I'm giving again the example of of a doctor's office or any type of office or any commercial activities where you have many people coming in and out of the site constantly in an hour, whereas if you have an apartment, you have one person, maybe or two person coming out in the morning, coming back at a later time. So just by that, the traffic will be reduced. It's that's the first aspect. The second aspect, obviously, by offering easier access to the metro, by offering alternatives in terms of transportation, that will ease access. By the fact that we're offering different types of housing, meaning that we are targeting different populations, so that also will regulate throughout the day, because again, a young professional will not have the same time of day where they will exit their apartment versus an older people or a younger family. The traffic patterns will be spread throughout the day. So these are the elements that will make, I mean, we are aware of all of that.
Thank you, Alexandre. The next question is from Joseph, and this is for all of you developers or promoters. Are the harsh winters factored in each of these small designs? So have you considered winter? Je vais commencer avec toi, Stéphane.
Well, yeah, I've mentioned it a few times. I think we truly believe in the four-season design approach by providing enough indoor space, for instance, to get warm or cooled off for summer or winter, but also the open space system. It's green in the summer, but in the winter it has to be usable as well. So then we can talk about skating and all kinds of activities that are playful, useful, and protected from the winds. And so all of this will be woven into our design so that we get, you know, as much as we can a 4-season occupation of the site.
Mona, on this one?
Yeah, so definitely we would have to make sure that it's something that is integrated into our design, but I'm excited. I think that this has been mentioned a few times now, so we'll be sure to make sure that this is a priority in our design.
Thank you. Next question is from Joël. It's an engineering question. As the soil be tested, sorry, it's moving. Has the soil been tested at all 3 sites to ensure that the land can support the new buildings? So I'll start with the architect here, Stéphane. Is it possible to build bigger buildings on these sites?
Yeah, I'm not a structural engineer. I didn't review in detail the geotech, but my assumption at this stage is, yeah, with good foundations, there. I don't think there's any soil that is going to move under our feet here.
Mona and Alexandre, same answer?
Yeah, same answer, absolutely.
Thank you. Rod is asking, what are the potential timelines for completion of this project? And I think there was another one that I missed here. That was just before. Lauren, if you can put it back, it was concerning the financial aspects. I think you moved it into the responded, but it was not asked. So I'll start with this one. What are the potential timelines for completion of projects of these scopes? So what are we talking about in terms of timeline for each of the redevelopments? How much time will it take to complete? So roughly, I know it's really preliminary concept at this stage, but can you give us an overview or an estimation? Alexandre?
Yes, sorry. So, I mean, first of all, we do not have a definitive plan today. We do not have any approval today. We don't. The first step would be to complete this process. My understanding, and Tanya, obviously, I mean, can give a better timeline as to this preliminary process. But my understanding is that this approval process will be between 24 to 36 months. This is my understanding. After which our development, again, depending on the scope, depending on what we will have. But if I would have to give a preliminary idea, I would say between 5 to 7 years, probably, in terms of development.
Thank you, Mona. Roughly?
So once again, as we've said, we've had to define, of course, the first phase here, which is all the planning background that needs to be done first. After that, it's something we have to talk to our tenants as well to see how they would like to be moved and all of that, and how that would all these different blocks would be structured. So it's going to be a phase project for sure. It's going to be multi-phases because we're not going to be building it all at once. This also allows us to be able to adapt each phase towards the market at that time. So, you know, if in the beginning there's a big need for more family housing, maybe at the end of the development, there's going to be more need for single person housing. So we would be able to adapt that over time. So that's another reason for the phasing.
Thank you, Stéphane. And I see that Tanya wants to answer also. So
yeah, I think I was surprised with the 36 months, Alexandre. I'm kind of discouraged now because we want to get started earlier. But anyway, I'll let Tanya maybe talk about this. Yeah, this will be phase project. It's also market driven. It's related to leases, and I agree with all the comments here. We don't have yet all the rules and the zoning and the format, so it's hard to actually formulate an exact, but it's multi-phase, you know.
Thank you. So Tanya, from the perspective of the city now, what needs to be done prior to, you know, and how long will it take?
Okay, so this year we're doing our pre-consultations. Next year we'll be drafting the actual master plan and then having the consultations, like the legal official ones, right? And with that will come sort of negotiations with the developers, because there's give and take involved in whatever final things would appear in a zoning bylaw revision or master plan. Once those get approved, and that let's say that'll be 2023, then you start with the permits and then whatever would be construction. So in the construction, because some of them are tied also not just to tenants, but also to things like Cavendish extension, right? Which is not something the city of Côte Saint-Luc controls. So in the city's sort of thoughts about this, the projects, if you're talking about from like, when would we see all these magic pretty pictures type of thing become realized, I think we're looking, let's say construction would start to end of 2024, early 2025, and then probably the end could be 10 to 15 years, right? Depending on what phasing would be. I mean, there's a lot of developer things, but
I think it gives us a good idea of the the time frame. So we're looking at long-term projects also. Stay on, Tanya. The next one is for you. That's the question that was raised by mistake. So you mentioned additional revenues, but won't additional services be required? And if so, how much will it cost? So have you factored in your additional revenues, the cost of additional services?
Okay, so I'll just sort of explain how we arrived at the number we arrived at and what it includes and doesn't include. So we sort of did a rough idea based on, let's say, some of the dream visions of the developers, right? Because that's a point de base. And then we did a calculation, and our treasurer did this. So we have a small committee who's actually looking at this to sort of say what range there could be. And the numbers that I gave are after our payment to the agglo, right? Because like 50% of our budget goes to the agglomeration. So when we're talking revenue, we're talking net revenue. What it was not including, which we are highly aware of, is obviously these are residents who generate garbage, need snow removed, have go to the aquatic center, use the library. So we haven't done those calculations yet. We tried even last year to make a formula of like the cost per resident or something. It's not actually obvious of how to do that, but so it doesn't include those. So we understand that there's I want to say a flip side deduction to make, but because the 3 million per site is not the lowest and not the highest, we sort of targeted in the middle.
So kind of a conservative estimation based on what you know. Thank you very much. So Leonard is saying sustainability and compliance with climate issues are wonderful, but Côte Saint-Luc has a very high proportion of seniors, and it is unrealistic to think that pedestrian and bicycle path are an appropriate solution. I think it's back to you, Tanya. Are these goals of sustainability take in consideration the reality of seniors?
Well,
especially when we're talking about active transportation, we had quite a few comments related to that.
Sure. So first of all, right now as it stands, we have none of these pedestrian links, and we don't really have an extent. We barely have a bike network, and our transit is sporadic. So that's with 30% of our population being seniors now. So if for the others, let's say a senior can't go on a bike path, or they're not going to go on a bike path, that's fine. They can't do it now anyway, and they still have to get around. So if you're talking about, first of all, if 60, the remaining 2/3 of our, or 70% of our population start using the active transit links, that makes it safer for seniors to cross the street. Having wide sidewalks, it makes it safer for seniors. Seniors still need a way to get around, right? Whether it's going to be their own cars, whether it's going to be, the golden shuttle, or whether it's going to be, there's different things, but right now they have no option. So we're only adding options for them. And if one of the trips just means going downstairs to get their, to meet their friends, because seniors meet, let's say, their friends at McDonald's near the Côte Saint-Luc shopping center now, and it's easier for them, that's easier for them, not harder.
So a lot of the questions or comments are related to that. So I think it's interesting that you are mentioning that you're actually adding options and not removing options. So people will still be able to go and get their groceries by car if they need to. I think Danielle has a few comments related to that. She's got a long list. I won't read it all, but one of it, a couple of them were related to active transportation and the difficulty for, doing groceries, or people with, families and mobility impaired. So I think these are all things to be considered. There's also a question about, the gathering space in wet and cold weather that's been mentioned also. Also the importance of the frequency of the public transit to be effective and for people to use it. Harry has mentioned that this is again a question on the traffic studies and Décarie Square. There's a few concerns here. why no traffic study for the Décarie Square? So I think Harry mentioned that he believes that there's no traffic study. I understand from you, Alexandre, that you have done preliminary studies based on that. Maybe you want to repeat that for Harry.
Correct. So yes, so one of the first things that we did when we acquired the site was to do a traffic study by CIMAC Plus. So yes, we do have a traffic studies. All the numbers that we presented today are the result of these traffic studies. Like I said, we are not experts. We hired experts to do traffic studies. So yes, there was a traffic study.
Thank you. How about the Cavendish extension? Also, Tanya, it was mentioned in one of the questions here. Do we have any news related to that?
Well, certainly the City of Montreal is actively working on the Cavendish extension. They made a deposit to the BAP this year, and I know even the transit agencies have been asked to focus explicitly on, or like prioritize, the Cavendish corridor. So it's not our project. They certainly consult us all the time when it's time to do so. I expect there will be more information upcoming because they've been working on it for a few months now, but this is something that, and I know people have been talking Cavendish extension for decades and decades, but the fact that Montreal needs it bodes very well for the City of Côte Saint-Luc.
Thanks. Question for the developers or maybe for the city. Have you thought about heated sidewalk in the new redevelopments for the winters? Is it something that you have considered? Is it the level of detail that's a bit too detailed for now? Tanya and Alexandre.
Well, I'll just give I mean, this is something we actually looked at many years ago. We had a test pilot project of heated sidewalks in the back with like geothermal picks. The cost of installing those is absolutely overwhelmingly making it not affordable. So even though it's a lovely concept, I'd rather have awnings and clear snow than be able to have to pay the cost per linear meter is out of this world if it's heated sidewalks, out of this world.
Thank you. Alexandre, you were
obviously, I mean, we obviously have not looked at this option in detail. Maybe, I mean, Côte Saint-Luc, I mean, and you can share with us your studies. However, what I can say is that when we're looking at the redevelopment of a whole site, one of the advantages, right, is that you do have a critical mass where you can do some investments that will benefit the whole site, which could justify them. Now, is it something that we will do? Again, I don't know, because we have not done traffic. We have not done extensive studies specifically on that. But I know that at some point we did look, for example, at a central garbage treatment center, and it was justified because, you know, it's a whole site and it can support it. So could we do geothermal heating if we're doing it for the whole site? I mean, adding it for the sidewalk, I don't see it as a big option. Again, for us today, I mean, we would consider all of these options. And I believe that, you know, by doing a complete redevelopment, if we do it preliminarily, we can certainly study everything. For us, everything is on the table today. And if it's something that, you know, that we have to look at, we will look at it.
Thank you. A quick comment by Nathan, who says that the city should not only be preoccupied with grand visions, but also with, you know, day-to-day maintenance of sidewalks and pedestrian safety. So, and also, I think from the comments I see here, the question of the relevance of the bike path. Who is targeted for these bike paths? Who will be using it? So that is a comment that's been repeated a few times. And the same thing for Danielle. Danielle is also asking, in these new developments, will there be any consideration for wind blowing in open spaces, providing shade corridors, rain shelters, and all that? I believe that you've all mentioned that you know, this was part of your redevelopment. So I'll go quick on this one. I'm just accelerating a little bit because we have 15 minutes left and so many questions. Again, to those who ask questions and may not get an answer tonight, in a few days, you have about 5 hours to meet all of these great people here and ask them your questions and maybe enter more into a conversation. Since Montreal pedestrian and green spaces are covered by snow and ice, what are the plans to keep these areas safe for walking? So I mean, we talked about heated sidewalks, so this is a recurring theme here. Thank you for the interesting presentation. This is Norman. I'm impressed with the plan for Côte Saint-Luc malls and note the emphasis on green space, park, trees, area, and the ability for residents to walk. However, we must remember the realities of our winter. So here you go, winter again. So think about that. I think definitely people are concerned about these, you know, this is great for all, you know, the beautiful days of summer and spring, but what happened when it rains, what happened when, you know, when it's cold outside. So these are, I guess it's more of a comment, a message you received than a question. Alexandre, you want to maybe comment on this?
Yeah, I just want to add something. I mean, we did mention very briefly in our presentation, but we, in our vision, because of the location of the Square Décarie, which is a bit outside, which is completely outside the main city of Côte Saint-Luc, we have included a community center that will be included in our development. We know that we had heard this from the citizen. We were invited to a meeting, I believe it was 2 or 3 years ago, that was done for the residents of the area. And one of the concerns was that there are no services, there is no library. So we, in our plan again, we have included a community center that will be gifted to the residents.
Okay. Robbie is asking if in these projects will be committed to without guarantees about additional transit options. So basically, if there's no train station, if there's no Cavendish extension, will the city still look at these projects and give them a green light? Tanya.
So certainly, this is one of the tricky bits, right? If you were going to say, is there a what are the issues that make us most nervous as a city? It's the fact that we have zero control over the things like access and egress, right? So in terms of any of the sites, well, Décarie Square is slightly exceptional because it's actually within walking distance to the metro. So that kind of has its own, leaving that one aside, if there is no chance on earth of Cavendish extension happening, I don't think the development would end up being as dense as it would have if Cavendish extension was concrete steps were made. There's a reason why that one would have to be very phased, right? And certainly starting with things that, you know, he would move the grocery store because the grocery store does not depend on Cavendish extension. I'm not going to pretend to even know about the phasing that developers will go through, but for sure we couldn't allow the same density with zero chance of our dreams and visions happening.
Thank you, Tanya. Lorna, again on the same theme, you know, about seniors getting around to the shops and about the open spaces during the winter months. So I think that was answered a couple of times. Also, Toby is asking about the duration of these projects. How long will it take? I think we've discussed that also. For the Décarie Square, is there any additional exit access other than the current Vizina? Because right now traffic is very bad. So do you plan on having other accesses, Alexandre, to Décarie Square and future projects? This is a question from Joe.
The only other possibilities, obviously, we would have the access. I mean, there is Vizina, there is. I'm sorry, I lost the other street that goes. Clanranald, correct. So thank you, Tanya. The other possibility will be over the overpass, but this is not something that we control. That there is an overpass that goes on top of Square Décarie. So this is not something that we control. So we are limited in terms of other exits.
Thank you, Alexandre. La prochaine question est d'Isabelle pour Mona. Isabelle se pose la question, dans le fond, quand vous allez construire des habitations, comment les gens qui vont se rendre au IGA ou à la pharmacie vont pouvoir stationner? Les résidents là, qui se dirigent là. Donc, Mona, est-ce que vous allez maintenir un stationnement pendant la construction pour les visiteurs et la clientèle de ces commerçants?
Oui, tout à fait. On va faire exactement ça. On va laisser la place. En fait, on a déjà fait un projet en redevelopment actuellement aujourd'hui qui est le centre Wilderton. Alors, on a vraiment fait des phasages et on a même, on fait. C'est ça l'autre chose qu'on peut faire avec des phasages, c'est si on démolit une petite portion, on peut aussi donner plus de stationnement pour compenser l'espace qu'on va utiliser pour le développement.
Très bien, merci Mona. Question from David, who's asking, will the existing tenants be able to reserve space in the redeveloped shopping centers? So, I mean, this is a question for all of you.
Yeah, I think this is very
Stefan?
much part of the phasing strategy. So typically, like I've worked on the Walderton center that Mona expressed, and essentially it's about moving tenants. Some of them, for all kinds of reasons, will their lease will extinguish, and others will continue either in the same location or in a new space through relocation. So it's really it's a tedious exercise, but yes, the current tenants should have the opportunity to enter into other business arrangements going forward. Yeah.
Tanya, you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to add, because it's extremely important to the city to maintain, I want to say, local business, right? And not just, you know, the pharmacy and this, but places that are I want to say Côte Saint-Luc and have the Côte Saint-Luc character, right? We want to keep our bagel shops, we want to keep our things. So these are things that make Côte Saint-Luc versus the same generic as everywhere else place. So in our vision, at least for all the sites, we want to have that local flavor of small merchants too, whether they're exactly the same ones or new ones. That's not for, I mean, we're not the landlords, but we absolutely, the vision of the city is to have local commerce that way.
Yeah, should be a good mix of banners and mom and pops and local businesses with history. I think typically these make the best urban spaces because you get the variety and the history and the authenticity. And I think that's what we're looking for.
Thank you, Stefan. Mona and Alexandre, quickly on that, is it part of your plan to give the possibility of your existing tenants to reserve space in your future developments?
So obviously, I mean, we will give priority to our tenants. I mean, we do have existing leases with some of them that, I mean, we will honor, obviously, but some of them, you know, even if they are being, if the lease expires at the time of redevelopment, they will have priority over any new other tenant.
Mona, same thing?
Yeah, so, and I would like to say that for our side, we actually have a unique opportunity here because we have such a big asphalted parking lot. So we could actually build our first phase in the parking lot. So that makes it a lot easier for redevelopments, or sorry, for the relocation of tenants.
Thank you. So now we're seeing quite a lot of the same comments and questions coming. So I'll just go flip very quickly to those. So Robbie is concerned about the accessing Côte Saint-Luc during the construction of the Décarie Square site. So there's, you know, because of traffic congestion. Isabel is talking about heated walkways and sidewalk. We've discussed that already. Harold is talking about the percentage of high percentage of Côte Saint-Luc residents who are seniors and not able to switch to bicycle to go shopping. So we've discussed already this. Covered walkways and walking bridge over Cavendish. Have you considered that, Tanya? Walking bridge over Cavendish, is this something that is in your plan?
We've considered walkways over other places, but Cavendish, I think what we've considered, rather than a bridge, which doesn't necessarily work with the configuration, we're certainly going to have to reconfigure the crosswalks, because right now you have tiny little medians, and if you have to have proper links, you need absolutely incredible, you know, pedestrian crossing. So I don't think a bridge is the answer for Cavendish, but certainly the way it is now is not going to work in a new development. We're going to have to reconfigure, I'll call it the central axis between City Hall and Cavendish Mall.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. Have you, to Tanya also, have you considered taking into account the development of the former Hippodrome site and new redevelopment project when planning this development for Square Décarie? Is it something that the city is obviously aware of, but are you taking this in consideration in the planning process?
Well, Décarie Square is part of what is the Namur de la Savane area, right? This is an economic pole that's delineated in the Schéma d'agglomération. And so right near Décarie Square, you have the Westbury, you have the Hippodrome, you have what will be Royal Mount, you have the Triangle. And all of us are sort of, we meet in these groups, both technical and steering committees, to talk about the resources, right? So for example, there needs to be schools. Where are the schools going to be located? They're likely not going to be located at Décarie Square. They're much more likely to be located at the Hippodrome. If Décarie Square has that market that we're talking about, that would probably be the market for the entire NDLS area. It is impossible to consider Décarie Square out of the context that it's in. Impossible. So yes, we think about this all the time, and certainly we are in discussions with Montreal. Our professional teams are constantly interacting because we have to consider it together. Plus we want our pedestrian bridge over the tracks between the two sites.
Thank you, Tanya. The other thing that will be impossible is to answer all the questions that we have on our list tonight. There's still about 40 questions. And as I said at the beginning, the meeting will end at 9 o'clock, but you will have an opportunity to go and ask your question to the people that presented to you and to others at the open house on the 18th from 12 to 5 at the, no, go ahead, Elizabeth. Correct.
Sorry, it's from 10 to 4. At the
10 to 4, sorry about that.
Aquatic and Community Center, that's okay.
Thank you very much for correcting me. And so all of these great questions and comments, you are really invited to have a conversation with the people, the representative from the owners. Also, there will be people from the city. Nadia will be there if you need some more information about master plans in general, about shopping mall trends, about the specifics of these sites. She's been very silent tonight because most of the questions were directed to the owners and to the city, but she's a very resourceful person. I really encourage you to go and see her on Sunday. So we're kind of reaching the end of the meeting. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Dida Berku, the councillor responsible for the planning process, will give you her closing remarks. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for your presentation and for all of the efforts in answering all the questions.
Merci, Jacques, and thank you very much to all the panelists. I'm speaking to you. Good evening, bonsoir, on behalf of the mayor and council who are online and who look forward to seeing you on Sunday. Je remercie tous les présentateurs, Alex et Tanya et Jacques et Elisabeth and Stéphane and Mona. C'était, je pense, des présentations fort intéressantes. So I'm sure you'll all agree with me that these were all very, very interesting presentations. And you've heard a lot about sustainable mixed use, new urban neighborhoods. These ideas and visions are being proposed in order to solicit your feedback and get you thinking about the future and the 6 goals driving the master plan. I just want to do a little fast review. The number 1 is dynamic mixed use neighborhoods, because we have to work this out as we're moving forward with these projects. Number 2 is connectivity and expanded mobility options. Number 3 is affordable and diversified housing. Number 4 is long-term financial sustainability. 5 is climate change resiliency. And number 6 is inclusive, age-friendly city. These goals really reflect a lot of the questions that you asked tonight. And I think that we really understand our population. We understand what issues are very, very important to you. And if you're like me, as well as affordable housing and plazas and tree-lined walkable streets, you're also thinking about traffic. And I think about it a lot, and how to travel in and out of Côte Saint-Luc faster and easier. And as you all know, we're in a great location, but we just need better access and transit solutions inside our city. And we need to be connected to Greater Montreal. So it is our firm belief that the new developments and the master plan together will ensure that we do get these transit solutions working together. C'est une conjoncture de circonstances qui est très important pour la ville. Un des défis les plus importants du nouveau plan, c'est de trouver des solutions de transport qui seront adaptées et vont évoluer avec nos besoins. And why is the master plan and redevelopment of the 3 sites connected? They're connected to better and faster transit. Let me just recap and conclude with this. If you want to open up our city to new connections, better and faster mobility options, if you want to get to the metro in 5 minutes from Quartier Cavendish, if you want to bike to the Lachine Canal through the Park-Haven pedestrian bike bridge, if you want to take the train at the new Côte Saint-Luc station, if you want to walk to the Hippodrome or Walmart or the pedestrian bridge at the Clan Ranald, that's what the first phase would entail. These options are all linked to these three major projects. And it is our firm belief that these new neighborhoods will further the key goals and objectives of the master plan and make Côte Saint-Luc more connected through these new transit and mobility solutions. If the redevelopment can help make it all happen, then it will be, as the mayor says, and said at the beginning of the session, win-win-win for all the parties, so that we do what is best for all of Côte Saint-Luc residents and the taxpayers. You've been over 270 people watching us tonight. And this is a very good sign that we have now triggered in you the interest and the inspiration to continue to be involved in this great exercise that we are doing. So I invite you to come on September 18th from 10 to 4 to the ACC. Je vous invite à venir ce dimanche nous rencontrer et le conseil, les élus seront là aussi. Et avec ça, je vous souhaite bonsoir, good night, thank you very much, and have a great evening. Merci.